Hi, my name is Christy Neumeister, and I just wanted to give you an overview of the Indiana Department of Ed high ability data cards that are put out for each district to kind of give an indicator of how the district is doing with identification services for high ability kids. Okay, if you look on the first page of the data card, you'll see a lot of good information. Starting with up here, it'll tell you, does the coordinator have a license in high ability or not? And then the number of licensed personnel in the district. And that can kind of start to tell a story if you see, for example, that when we get to the next page, that performance is lower than expected for high ability kids. And if you see, well, the district doesn't have anybody licensed, that would be, something to suggest right away as a recommendation. Okay, but if you look down here, you can see the information on the identification for the district, and it has historical data from the last 3 years. And you can see here the percentage, the lines reflect the percentage of kids in each grade level that are identified high ability. And I pulled this example up because you can see in 2013 and 14, this district was crazy over identifying their kids, 31%, 27% high ability. And obviously somebody who came in 2015, you can see the blue line, really kind of took care of that and reined it back in. And these are the percentages that are more in line with what we would expect to see. The data cards have a yellow for whenever there's a 0 in the cells, indicating that no one was identified as high ability. And this isn't meant to be punitive to the districts, it's just meant to give information. Like, for example, no one being identified in ninth grade being the first year of high school, is probably a reporting error that the person at the high school didn't know to identify at the ninth grade. So it can just help clean up some of those identification practices. On the next page, you can see information about free and reduced lunch. So over here on this side, we have the percent for all of Indiana who are identified as qualifying for free and reduced lunch. And you can see it's nearly 50% of our population across the state qualifies for free and reduced lunch. On this side, it's for the district specific. So the top pie graph is the percent overall for the district, and you can see this one, 68% of the kids in this district qualify for free and reduced lunch. But when you look down here in that district, only 27% of the identified high ability kids are those who qualify for free and reduced lunch. Now these aren't going to match exactly, but really they should be closer than they are here. And if they are so discrepant, it's usually an indicator that something is going on with the identification practices. For example, maybe there's a teacher gatekeeper, or maybe the kids have to do well on an achievement measure before they're allowed to even be considered for high ability. Those sorts of practices tend to discriminate against kids from disadvantaged backgrounds who may not have had the opportunity to learn prior to coming to school. They might be able to think very well, but their achievement level isn't high enough. So if it's depending on achievement tests or a teacher recommendation, those kids might get overlooked, which might explain some of this discrepancy. So that would be something, if the graph looks like this, to drill down and figure out what's going on. On the next page of the data card, you have indication of how the high ability kids did on ISTEP. Now, as you know, ISTEP is just a measure of grade level standards, so it is not the goal for high ability to be Pass Plus, but it would really be the expectation, the lowest bar. All kids who are identified as high ability should theoretically be able to score at the Pass Plus level. And we know some kids, don't take the test seriously, or this, that, and the other. So a rule of thumb would be approximately 90% of your high ability kids should be able to score at the Pass Plus level on ISTEP. The green bars here are math, and you can see in this district, not necessarily 5th grade, but with the exception of that, the district is doing pretty well on a high ability and Pass Plus in math, but they're not doing very well on language arts, which is the blue. So that would be an indicator that you need to go in, if you're the coordinator, think about what curriculum, what materials are being used, what does the instruction look like, why is it that our high ability kids aren't able to be as successful on ISTEP and language arts, and try to figure out from a curriculum and instruction point of view what could be done to support that teacher, those students, to boost that performance. Finally, on the last page of the data card, you see indications of how high ability kids do on PSAT, advanced placement, and receiving an academic honors diploma. Over here, this is pretty interesting. We usually just look at how the district does overall, excuse me, in terms of AP. But over here, we're just looking specifically at how your high ability kids did. Okay, so for example, if we look at 11th grade here, we can see this district had 39 kids identified as high ability in the 11th grade, but only 4 of those kids took an AP exam. So why are not very many kids taking advanced placement? That would be something I would want to ask. If you look down at the 12th grade, we see that we had 40 identified and now we had 26 taking it. But then we can look at the number of kids who are actually being successful. So out of the 26, 22 were able to score a 3, 4, or 5 on that AP exam. So 85% of those who took it did well. However, that was only 55% of the total identified high ability kids. So there's still a gap here that we would need to figure out a way to get more high ability kids to understand the importance of taking a AP exam. If you look down here at the PSAT, you can see how did the high ability kids do, what was their average score, and how many made the 8th stay 9, which is 89th percentile, or the 9th stay 9, which is 96th percentile. Now remember, these are our identified high ability kids, so it's kind of surprising if we use the traditional 96th percentile or higher for the identification early on the COGAT or NWA or those kinds of things. Why are we not having very many of those same kids score at those top levels on PSAT? So what does the instruction look like, and does it need to be more rigorous in terms of the curriculum and the instruction for those kids to, again, boost their performance? And finally, down at the bottom, you can see the number of high ability kids who are getting receiving an academic honors diploma. And in this district, 88%. Now there's really no reason that isn't 100% for all districts. I mean, if you look at what is required for an academic honors diploma, those are expectations that we would think our high ability kids could certainly reach. So if that's a lower percentage than expected, again, that would indicate that you need to look into the course taking patterns for those kids and encourage them to take more rigorous options. So the data card can provide us good information that kind of tells a story of what's going on in the district in terms of identification and performance at the elementary all the way through the high school level. And it can help us, again, not in a punitive way, but to help guide suggestions for program improvement in the future. Thank you.